You know, I've had a lot of impossible things happen to me. I have. Anybody who knew me in high school would have said it's impossible that guy would get a college degree. That was impossible. Let alone a master's degree. I had chronic back pain that I thought I would have forever and ever and would keep me from being active. That's gone. I don't have chronic back pain, and I'm incredibly active, and I thought that was impossible. My wife had a brain clot in her brain a couple years ago, shut off half her brain blood flow, and she couldn't speak. She couldn't talk. She couldn't walk. And man, crazy stuff. A week later, she was playing tennis. Unheard of. That was supposed to be impossible. I have responsibility right now, and I'm just doing things that are just impossible. Lib and I have been through some major marriage stuff, and it's impossible that we're still going strong and better than ever in the midst of it. Whenever there's something impossible, it tells you something is behind what was impossible. Imagine if you came down in the morning wherever you live, and there was a box of Alphabet cereal out there. Anyone had Alphabet cereal at any time recently, like in the last 30 years or so? Still make it. And imagine if you came down and you saw on the counter the words, "I love you." What would you assume? You would assume that somebody had spelled that out for you. You would not assume that someone tipped over the box and accidentally 5 letters came down in the exact same order to spell "I love you." You wouldn't assume that. Folks, you are not a random accident. You are not. Your brain is not a random accident. Those 100 billion cells are there because God put you together. There's 37.2 trillion cells are there because God put you together. Your neurochemistry is there because God causes that to happen. You are impossible that God has put you there and here, and He's blessed us with life in the midst of it. We also have some impossible things we're wrestling with. We're wrestling with perhaps addictions, and we think it's impossible that we're going to get over an addiction. We're wrestling with memories of abuse, and we think it's impossible that we could possibly have a clear mind. We're wrestling with financial bankruptcy, credit card debt, and it's impossible for us to think that we could be financially free. We're wrestling with a divorce, and we think it's impossible that we could ever feel loved again. We're wrestling with an awful medical diagnosis, and we think it's impossible that we could actually be healthy again. We're wrestling with memories of something that took place in our childhood that are just too despicable to recount. And we think it's impossible that we could actually feel free. We're wrestling with how the previous relationship or the previous employer hurt us, and we have this bitterness, this utter bitterness, and we think it's impossible that we could ever have joy again. And I could go on and on and on. I want us to be able to identify what it is that we think is impossible for us to feel, to have, to believe. Some of us, you came in here today and you just thought it's impossible to actually believe that there is a Jesus and He actually cares and that He is God. You came in here today maybe thinking that was completely impossible, and just maybe you would like to see, maybe I could have faith, but no, faith is maybe impossible. In the book of Romans, chapter 10, verses 9, it says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe that God has raised Him from the dead, you will be saved. This doesn't mean only saved from an eternity away from God. This also means right here in this world, saved from things that are afflicting you. Right here in this world, saved from things that you think you'll never get over because it's impossible for me to get over. No, it's not. It's not impossible. With God, all things are possible. And I want us to identify, what is it that we think is impossible. Take out your Sharpie again. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to do another song right now, and we're going to see a depiction of what it looks like when God comes and does the impossible in somebody's life. When the very Spirit of God comes and moves and touches people who are downtrodden and think that they are long gone, that think that things are impossible. And during this piece, if you understand, okay, what is it I believe is impossible? Do I believe it's impossible to have hope? Do I believe it's impossible to feel healthy? Whatever it is, I want you to take that Sharpie and put underneath that impossible word, what is it that you think is impossible? God, continue to move in here right now and help us to know what you're capable of. Amen.